How's it going, everybody? It's C-RadTV back here in another video. So, of course, it's time to wrap up the NFL draft previews for this year's draft with our final draft preview. So, of course, in our last draft preview, we looked at the top day 3 linebacker prospects. And in this one, we're going to wrap them up with the top day 3 defensive back and safeties prospects in rounds 4 through 7 of the 2021 NFL draft. So, there are a lot of players to go over in this video. The most in-depth one I've saved for last. At least over 30 players we're going to go over for sure in this video. So, of course, enough talk. Let's just go ahead and let's jump right in this. Let's get going. So, starting off with defensive backs, the first one we're going to go over here, hailing out of USC, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 175 pounds. We got Elicia Griffin. So, for Elicia's strengths, his height and his arm weight, that keeps him as an outside corner with plenty of entice. Smooth mover, quick feet, can break and step any direction with ease. Can also go stride for stride if the receiver tries to push the route deep. Works comfortably in his zone and manages to get off blocks well, despite being a bit underwhelming strength-wise. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's a little undersized from a weight perspective. Will need to add some strength. His punch and jam coverage has little to no impact, often results in him getting pushed back. He may not have the best deep speed, and added weight, it could further hurt his agility and his speed. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Aaron Colvin of the Washington No-Skins. Has a lot of upside for sure, has a lot of things you want in a corner. Definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Oregon, standing 5'11", weighing 195 pounds, we got Diabolo Lenore. A bit of a tongue twister name. But anyway, to his strengths, natural athlete, looks comfortable playing man and zone coverage, so he can play any coverage scheme. Outside corner, sufficient speed, can hold his own in man coverage. High effort run defender, will throw himself into the play, force things to happen. He can be disruptive along routes, has a good feel for playing press coverage too, so he can play a lot of coverage schemes. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he isn't a plus athlete. He'll have lapses with fluidity when he tries to stay in phase. Too easily, he's baiting the mistakes against the double move. His awareness must improve if he's going to avoid making mental errors. Doesn't have the quickness that teams will want from a nickel corner. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Damon Arnett of the Las Vegas Raiders. So, a lot of upside for sure. Can play almost any coverage scheme. Might be more outside corner instead of going to nickel. But still, this is someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, also hailing out of Oregon, standing 5'10", weighing 193 pounds, we got Thomas Graham Jr. So in terms of Thomas's strengths, he's an outside corner, imposing style in the run game. Excellent at identifying screens and underneath routes, can pounce on them. Comfortable working in off coverage, does a good job, puts himself in spots to make stops. Smart and patient player, comfortable when he plays through physicality when necessary. And he showed a lot of productivity on the ball in college. I just need to learn how to pronounce those fucking words, damn it. Anyway, in terms of his weaknesses, though, while he isn't a poor athlete, doesn't have desirable quickness in and out of breaks to stay in phase with agile receivers. Likely need help over the top from a safety if he's going to hold up against elite speed. He may end up purely as an off-coverage corner unless he can improve technically at the line of scrimmage. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Savon Smith of the Dallas Cowboys. So he has a lot of upside for sure. He might need a little help, because it's a team sport. He may need help from the rest of his line to make some plays too. But still, maybe someone to look at for sure. So the next corner we're going to go over here, hailing out of Michigan, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 182 pounds, we got Ambry Thomas. So for Ambry's strengths, he's fast and moves well when he covers deep zones. Opens his hips, stays close to receivers. He should continue being able to work inside and outside as a corner. That versatility will help him stick as a solid versatile depth option as he continues to grow his game. He played special teams in all 3 seasons at Michigan, so he has versatility. He can also play special teams too. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he has issues playing physical, whether it's getting off blocks, jams at press coverage, or going up to make a play on the ball. He seems to get overwhelmed by aggressive or bigger receivers. He could have been benefited immensely from having 2020 tape to evaluate his progress. since he opted out before the start of 2020 season due to the pandemic. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Anthony Brown of the Dallas Cowboys. Has a lot of potential for sure. Might have a little rust from sitting off a year. But, still, maybe someone to keep an eye on for maybe special teams or depth for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, this is actually a player I was high on for the draft last year until he decided to go back to college for another year. We have hailing out of Stanford, standing 6'1", weighing 192 pounds. We got Polson Adebo. So for Polson's strengths, he's long and physical, with the ball skills of a receiver, looks the part of an NFL athlete, generates good depth on his back pedal, gobbles up yardage due to his long gait, possesses the loose hips to turn and run with receivers. He does lack elite time speed, but he plays fast because of his instincts and understanding of football angles. Has terrific hand-eye coordination and body control, can play the ball in the air, matches up well with the monster receivers so popular in today's NFL. In terms of weaknesses, though, he's smooth, but he doesn't have elite speed. He raises questions about his ability to handle one-on-one coverage of the NFL's top vertical receivers and their receiver threats. Can get a little grabby at the mesh point, sneaks tugs on the jersey to slow receivers, so he's got to learn to not get called for holding or pass interference and not take dumb penalties. It can be a split second early coming back to the ball. Occasionally drives through wideouts on his way to break up passes. Like most long leg corners, he does lose a step in his transition. Can be beaten with quality double moves when he's caught peeking in the backfield. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, who's now a retired defensive back. But still, I was high on taking him in the draft last year until he decided to come back for a year. I'm still high on taking him for sure. I'll say right here, if he's there in the 4th or 5th round, maybe for sure look at taking him for sure. I think he could really do some work with them in the secondary for sure. Has a lot of things that you want in a long corner for sure. It's definitely someone I want for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of South Carolina, standing 6'3", weighing 205 pounds. We got Israel Mukuamu. Bit of a tongue twister last name. But anyway, for Israel's strengths, he stands every bit of his listed height, has the size and length to dominate receivers when he puts his hands on them. Physicality is going to be a sticking point for a lot of teams. Physical run defender, has no qualms launching himself into targets. Has experience at safety, which is a huge plus, so there's some versatility with him. And he could end up fitting better there as a safety in the pro game, depending on what scheme he ends up in. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his size does come with a trade-off. Doesn't have good flexibility and fluidity with his change of direction. Doesn't have the ideal quickness for man coverage. He's going to struggle if he's asked to mirror receivers. He's a scheme-specific player who's going to be off the board for some teams solely because of his athletic profile and play style. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Jaimie Williams of the New England Patriots, so has a lot of upside for sure, but if he's going to be a success in the NFL, it might be based on what scheme he plays. And playing in the scheme, it's like a glove. You either fit in the scheme or you don't fit it. Like a glove, you either fit or you don't. So yeah, for him to be a success, it's going to depend on if he can do well in Aaron Glenn's defensive scheme or whatever defensive scheme he ends up in. Definitely would be a gamble taking him for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Cal, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 200 pounds, we got Cameron Bynum. So for Cameron, he's the prototype intangibles corner. And in terms of his strengths, he's a coordinated athlete, has good arm length and flexible hips to corral receivers. He's quick in his drop, efficiently gains ground out of a traditional back pedal and sidestep, maintains close proximity to the receiver. He springs out of his stance and press. He's a savvy player. Film study shows his route recognition. He shows above average awareness to undercut quick hitters without getting sucked in by shoulder fakes. He's technically sound. Though the majority of his play was in outside corner, he does have experience in the slot corner, and he also played more of a safety role in some alignments in 2019, speaking to his preparation and his football smarts. So he has some versatility. He could line up almost anywhere in the secondary. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he does lack the wow factor from a size and speed perspective. He has a somewhat lanky frame with just average muscular development at this time. He may prove a better athlete on the field than he is in workouts. but he lacks an explosive element. He gets grabby in coverage, so he's going to have to learn to not do that and not take stupid penalties. And he likes to jostle receivers throughout the route, sneaking tugs that occasionally get called, so he's got to learn to not take stupid penalties like I just mentioned. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Levi Wallace of the Buffalo Bills. Has a lot of upside for sure. A couple things he's going to have to clean up, but still, this is someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Oklahoma, standing 5'9", weighing 188 pounds, we got Trey Brown. So for Trey's strengths, he's an agile defensive back, has the type of quickness to hold his own in man coverage, long speed sufficient for carrying receivers downfield, should be able to make up for lost ground when he's given a runaway to build up speed. Has good ball skills, plays above his size at the catch point. He also has experience as a returner, whether it be kick or punt return. So he has some versatility to even go back and being on defense, on special teams for sure. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he does not have adequate size for an outside corner. Likely will struggle if he's asked to take on bigger receivers. He's an ankle biter tackler. Has limitations with his finishing ability in the run game. Technique will need polish as a pro. He's too relaxed in man coverage duties. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to John Reed of the Houston Texans. So has a lot of upside and some versatility for sure. Gonna have to clean a couple things up and refine technique, which may take a couple years, but his main bread and butter could be on special teams, so maybe someone to keep an eye on for a punt return. So the next player we're gonna go over here, hailing out of Central Arkansas, standing 5'11", weighing 195 pounds, we got Robert Rochelle. So for Robert's strengths, he has experience lurking press and off coverage, although he seems to be most at home in off coverage, so he seems to be more fitted on off coverage scheme. Smart, other than that, though, he's a smart player, identifies route development, adjusts his position in zone, willing to attack blocks and go on the offensive, has enough length to create some separation when the timing's right. He also garnered enough attention and earned an invite, though, to the 2020 Senior Bowl, so he had some experience at the Senior Bowl, which is going to help raise his stock. Made some strong impressions there, too. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he doesn't bring the type of strength and reliability as a run defender to get solo finishes. He'll likely bank on his teammates helping to close the deal. He doesn't have practically smooth hips, which limits his range of motion when he tries to stay on top of routes. He's not very explosive. He could struggle to make up for lost ground if he makes a mistake. His feel for transition and coverage, it isn't reliable enough. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Xavier Crawford of the Chicago Bears. So he has a lot of potential here for sure. A couple things he's going to have to work on, but still, someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Georgia, standing 6'1", weighing 210 pounds, we got Mark Webb. So for Mark's strengths, he's a physical tackler, has the size and strength to finish by himself, long and well proportioned, has great length, feasible as a matchup piece against tight ends, has good awareness for route development, his positioning and zone coverage is sufficient. If a coaching staff wanted to bulk him up, it's possible he could possibly maybe go to linebacker too if he bulks up enough weight. So he could have some versatility there to where he could move in that position too in the future, in the long run. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he lacks the ideal quickness for mirroring receivers along their route, limits the way he can be used in coverage. His long legs, it makes it difficult to make sharp changes of direction or have a fluent back pedal. He doesn't have desirable long speed, which will lead to lapses when he works downfield in coverage. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Javin White of the Las Vegas Raiders. Has a lot of potential, maybe some versatility too, very physical too. Couple things that might limit him, but still, maybe someone to keep an eye on for like rotation or depth. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Michigan State, standing 5'11", weighing 190 pounds, we got Shakir Brown. So for Shakir's strengths, he's a high IQ player, small with a small frame, but he has physical play to overcome that. Likely has the aggression to survive outside if needed, but he should mostly work in as a slot corner. He's an impressive tackler, able to shed blocks, not give up ground, even when going against bigger tight ends. In zone coverage, he's effective at reading the QB and progressing toward the play direction. Turns his weaknesses, though, he's tight in his hips, struggles with quick twitch receivers, can break out of cuts quickly, gives up way too much space, can take bad angles in coverage. He can also get baited into going to certain areas on the field That happened a lot against a lot of raw QBs at the college level who didn't use it against him. But a lot of smart NFL QBs, they'll be eager to test him in that part of the game. So in terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Nate Hairston of the Denver Broncos. So has a lot of potential for sure, but he's got to learn to not get baited by top NFL QBs because they'll feast on him if he makes a mistake. And they sucker him in. So he's going to have to learn not to do that. Still, maybe someone to keep an eye on for depth. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Oklahoma State, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 193 pounds. We got Darius Williams. So for Darius' strengths, he has notable quickness and fluidity, has easy hips that allows him to pivot without any issues, has a good feel for pace, and his stop-start quickness is adequate for the next level. He's patient. He won't panic when he's put under pressure from athletic receivers. While he isn't a burner, he should be able to hold his own against downfield shots. And he also did get an invite and made a strong impression at the Senior Bowl this year, which is going to help raise his draft stock. In terms of his weaknesses, though, too often he hesitates when it comes to attacking receivers and tries to get in phase with them. Lack of aggression gives up a ton of room for receivers to work with. He's not particularly physical. He would struggle if asked to hold his own in the run game. His back pedal's unpolished and borderline sloppy at times. Still learning how to effectively reposition in man coverage. Should not be expected to mirror effectively early in his career. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to A.J. Green of the Cleveland Browns. And I should also mention he's also the older brother of former second-round pick Greedy Williams. So he has a lot of potential for sure. A couple things he's going to have to clean up. It might take a couple years before he hits his stride. Maybe someone to keep an eye on for the long run a couple years down the line. And the final corner we're going to go over in this video before we move on to the safeties. We have hailing out of Boise State, standing 5'9", weighing 188 pounds. We got Avery Williams. So for Avery strikes, he's an impact special teams piece, so he makes his bread and butter as a special teamer. Plays with good balance and body control. Active hands with an aggressive style with the ball in the air allows him to make plays at the catch point. He's engaged against routes and man coverage. Does a good job of disrupting the timing and position of receivers who enter his area. He's tough to deal with in press coverage despite his size. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's undersized for the outside, and he'll likely be forced into the nickel role at the NFL level as a nickel corner. Not particularly impressive as a run defender, and he'll get pushed around when he tries to finish against bigger runners. He doesn't have the burst to recover after losing ground on the receiver he's covering. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Amick Robertson of the Las Vegas Raiders. So he has some potential for sure. Couple things to keep an eye on, but I think his main bread and butter is going to be special teams for sure. So maybe someone to keep an eye on for special teams. So now, moving on to safeties. The first safety we're going to go over here, hailing out of USD, standing 6'1", weighing 215 pounds. We got Talona Hufanga. So Talona, he's your prototype tackling safety. So he's very good at tackling and getting to making plays on the ball carrier. In terms of strengths, he's explosive and an aggressive player, known for his willingness to deliver big hits, throws his body around. He tracks the ball well in a crowd. Doesn't lose sight of it even when things get muddied or bite on eye candy or false movement. His disruptive approach to coverage and makes him a viable matchup piece against some tight ends. He has smart with pursuit angles and he gets in positions to make plays. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's played as a box safety, but he doesn't have the type of range teams will covet on the back end. In some schemes, he would be asked to move to linebacker as a pro, so he could have some versatility there to where he could go to linebacker also. He does have some stiffness as a hips that will limit how he can change direction. Coverage ability is a bit lackluster. Isn't the most efficient open field tackler. Has questionable recovery speed, and he will struggle to make up for lost ground on plays. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Andrew Wingard of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he has some potential for sure. Very explosive and aggressive. Can make some plays. Might do better at linebacker, but still, maybe someone to keep an eye on. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Wisconsin, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 195 pounds. We got Eric Burrow. So in terms of Eric's strengths, he's quick on the pass, tracks the ball well, can get onto the play, even break fast enough to disrupt completions. His experience shines through with smart tracking and processing on each down. He moved all over the field, worked under one of the best defensive minds in college football, and Jim Leonhard. He seems to flip his head well, shows fluidity to move around where needed, and should be able to contribute early on special teams, so he could be a special teamer too and make plays on special teams. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his smaller frame, they can easily get overwhelming blocking situations. He gets absolutely bulldozed when he attempts to go against tight ends. Needs to improve on wrapping up on tackles, so he's got to improve on tackling. He doesn't come in with a lot of momentum on hits, which can lead to slipping off tackles and giving up a big play. Has nice pursuit in the pass game, but he lacks overall closing speed as a tackler, and he's average as a blitzer. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Jalid Adebo of the Los Angeles Chargers, so he has a lot of potential for sure. Couple things to work on. May take a couple years before he can really hit his stride, but could maybe start his career off as a special teamer, but might be a couple years before he makes a real impact on something other than special teams. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Georgia, standing 5'11", weighing 190 pounds, we got Richard LeCounte. So for Richard, he's the prototype intangible safety. In terms of his strength, he's a well-regarded leader, and it shows how he handles multiple assignments throughout the game. Flies quickly to the ball in the pass game. Close on receivers, does a nice job on eliminating playmaking ability. His size may not show it, but he can pack a punch tackling and make big hits. Plays the ball well, not just to produce turnovers, but to limit making plays. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he struggles taking angles, working downhill, results in being pushed off or missing tackles entirely. He could handle slot snaps in the slot corner, but he didn't seem great at keeping up with his matchups. In terms of range, he may be suited for a two safety zones rather than ever working single, which could limit his versatility. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Xavier Woods of the Dallas Cowboys, so he has a lot of potential for sure. A leader of men, which I think that's what Dan Campbell wants in a player. He wants his players to be leader of men. So definitely, I think he's definitely would be on the board for sure in the later rounds. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Florida State, standing 6'3", weighing 213 pounds, we got Khamzae Dean. That's a last name's a bit of a tongue twister. But anyway, for Khamzae, he's your prototype run support safety, so he's very good in the run game. In terms of strengths, he's an impressive athlete, uses his excellent frame to cover the field and be a consistent tackler. Does a nice job using his size to his advantage, both in coverage. He matches up against plus-size weapons and in shedding blocks. In terms of his weaknesses, though, there's plenty of room for him to develop. There's always room for improvement, but the growth seen in such a short time in 2020 is encouraging. He has issues processing plays, often slow to make the proper read. Can bite on fakes, blow coverage assignments, or be late to break on the run play. So he's got to do a better job at recognizing play and going where the ball goes to make a play. In man coverage, he struggled to stick with elusive weapons in drills at the Senior Bowl, looking totally out of place in one-on-one coverage. Likely restricted to being a tight end, a big slot coverage guy, which could pull him from some draft boards. So in terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to now retired safety Barry Church. So he has a lot of potential for sure, but he has struggled a little bit at the Senior Bowl this year. And, he might be he might be like a situational safety where he lines up in certain situations, but still maybe someone to keep an eye on for a couple years down the line before he hits his stride. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Florida, standing 5'11", weighing 199 pounds, we got Sean Davis. So for Sean's strengths, he has good pursuit of ball, closes space pretty well, has experience on special teams, which will be big for him as a late round ad, which will provide time working on the active roster while he grows his game. So he has that versatility to be a player on special teams too. Has nice processing ability when he works downhill. His frame's a bit small, but he can lay down a big hit. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he has issues as a single high safety. Could relegate him to split field zone duties only. He doesn't offer the versatility to drop down in coverage, though. He gets toasted in man assignments. Got toasted in man assignments all week at the Senior Bowl. There will be questions if he offers enough as a split field safety with special teams abilities to be brought in or not. He did have his fair share of misfiles on his tackling, which will be need to clean up as well. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to now retired safety Quentin Demps. So he has a lot of potential for sure. Probably going to start off on special teams at first when he comes in the league. Going to need to clean up and develop on tackling. Maybe someone to keep an eye on for a couple years down the line. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Texas, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 207 pounds, we got Kayden Stephens. So for Kayden's strengths, he's a decent-sized safety, has good length for the position. He's built in the prototype mold, has good patience as a run defender and discipline. It keeps him from making mistakes. He's adept at holding down zones and manipulating routes as they pass by. He has fairly clean changing direction. He's a functional athlete for the position, reads leverage well, has a nice understanding of how to track the ball through traffic. In terms of his weaknesses, though, while he should be functional as a 2-deep safety, he doesn't have the desirable range to cover. His tackling's inconsistent at best. He leaves his feet early, tends to beat off target. His run game discipline, it doesn't translate to his tackling approach, which will lead to too many misses working in space. He needs to be better at holding his ground against blocks and disengaging in a timely manner. And he has been listed as a player that could disappoint in the NFL. Because while he does have the traits to ultimately start in the NFL, he does remain too inconsistent as an open field tackler, and that alone could be one of the quickest ways to get into a coach's proverbial doghouse. But in terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Tedrick Thompson, a free agent safety, so he has a lot of potential for sure, and has good size for sure, but he's going to have to be more consistent at making tackles. He's got to get better at tackling for sure. Definitely would be a gamble taking him for sure. It would take him probably a couple years before he hits his stride. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Cincinnati, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 205 pounds, we got James Wiggins. So James, he's one of those small school studs, so he killed it in the small school district just on the fact that he is a legitimate NFL caliber athlete. His steady tackling, and coverage, it played a key role in Cincinnati's ascent to number 8 overall in the final polls. He's also quietly regarded as one of this year's better all-around safeties in the class. So in terms of strengths, he's a well-rounded, jack-of-all-trades type of safety. And coverage, he can handle all assignments, whether it be single high, split safety, or dropping down and playing man coverage. His impressive closing speed, it helps him fly to the ball. He's highly touted as an athlete, which should draw scouts' attention even closer. He has long arms, can help his coverage and tackle radius, does a nice job, a very nice job, I should add, playing the ball in the air. In terms of his weaknesses, he doesn't have a bad frame, but it's likely maxed out with little room left to grow. He can get off-centered, which will cause him to miss some tackles outside of his frame, which results in misses. This last season, he didn't seem to fully recover, though, from an ACL injury. And he did have some injuries that sat him out this year. So medicals could come into play for his draft stock, which that is going to be some red flags for sure. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to free agent safety Deron Harmon. So he has a lot of potential for sure, can almost do it all. But that health is question. Can he get back to the form he was at before that ACL injury? And can he stay healthy? That's going to be the biggest question for sure. Like, he definitely is very interesting to look at, but the big question is going to be his health. It would definitely be a gamble taking him for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Auburn, standing 6'1", weighing 220 pounds. We got Jaimie Sherwood. So for Jaimie strengths, he's an imposing run defender, has a nasty streak and a lot of linebacker traits with length to dominate blockers. He's a bully in the best way, brings the fight to opponents as a run defender. Tackle radius is excellent, nearly impossible to avoid once he lines up a runner. Physical against routes that pass through a zone. He's a functional zone defender. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his lack of experience is a major issue on the field. Evident that he's a one-year starter and slow processing abilities. His instincts and his reaction time on his first step isn't true. He will take some time for his play speed to improve, but his long legs make it tough to flip his hips and transition smoothly in open field. He's not slow, but he lacks true safety range for the NFL. He's not disciplined in his approach, but mistakes can be erased with football maturation. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Jeremy Chin of the Carolina Panthers, so has a lot of potential for sure, but it may take a couple seasons and a little bit of developing before he really hits his stride and really shows his potential, but maybe someone to keep an eye on for a couple years down the line. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Pitt, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 190 pounds, we got Paris Ford. In terms of Paris' strength, he absolutely flies to the ball, capable of laying down huge hits with tremendous closing speed, his ability to work downhill. He showcases nice speed and coverage skills. He's a former corner, working well in man coverage or deep in zone. He's an improved tackler. He's still working on it, but his growth is clear. So with him playing corner, he has some versatility and could line up almost anywhere in the secondary. In terms of his weaknesses, though, at his current frame, his play style doesn't match his body type. He's a bit undersized at 190 and lanky. He will get taken out of plays by blockers. He hurts his downfield ability which is his calling card. He'll likely need to bulk up to find success. In zone coverage, you can easily lose focus on assignments and get burnt for big plays. He missed a lot of games due to targeting penalties, so while he won't be ejected in the NFL for it, it could cost his team major penalty yards. So he's got to learn to not take stupid penalties and be very disciplined and have a clear head. And also not make a bunch of stupid hits too. In terms of his NFL comparison... Sorry about that, I had to sneeze there. But in terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to free agent safety Justin Evans. So he has a lot of potential and a lot of growth for sure, but he's got to get better discipline and not take stupid penalties. And improve a couple things. But yeah, this is still someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, also hailing out of Pitt, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 200 pounds. We got free safety Damar Hamlin. So in terms of Damar's strengths, he's a long and lean safety, has ideal range for the position, covers ground nicely, can work the back end effectively. Length helps him shed blocks, controls distance easier than most safeties in the run game. Processing speed's adequate for coming downhill and reacting to the run. He's not a legitimate single high safety in terms of speed, although he can hold his own when he works deep down the field. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his frame works against him in the run game. Doesn't have ideal play strength for blasting ball carriers and finishing tackles. He isn't stiff in the hips, but his long legs make sharp change of direction challenging. He tends to overrun plays after he has built up speed. Can survive in man coverage, but he should not be expected to play a large number of reps as a nickel. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Saquon Hampton of the New York Jets. So has a lot of potential for sure. A couple things to work on for sure, but definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Virginia Tech, standing 6'3", weighing 226 pounds, we got Divine Diabolo. So in terms of Divine strengths, he jumps off the screen with a lanky frame and solid athleticism. He looks like a gazelle in coverage with long strides, which allows him to make up large areas of space where he can get involved in coverage. His range works well. He shouldn't entice defenses, has the ability to match up as a dime back. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he has unrefined instincts that he gets by via his overall size and quickness. He often makes sloppy plays, though, which won't come as easily now. He would like more physicality in his game, but at the moment it isn't there yet. He's not the most agile, so he can get shaken up in open space. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to George Iloka of the Minnesota Vikings, so has a lot of potential for sure. Not that many weaknesses. He's a little sloppy, so he's got to learn to get a little better than that. But still, so this is definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Missouri, standing 5'11", weighing 201 pounds, we got Joshua Bledsoe. So in terms of Joshua's strengths, he has a nice frame, long arms, does nice moving around the field, uses range to his benefits as a tackler, has versatile experience with working in both safety spots and some slot corner assignments too, so he can work almost in a lot of different places in the secondary. He showed solid work as a blitzer as well, does a nice job getting off blocks in the run game. He shows patience on the field to process plays. In terms of his weaknesses, though, in a slot role, he struggles to keep a tight track on defenders, can easily give up plenty of space to the receiver. Too often, he's too quick to open his hips, gets put off balance. He's unable to make up ground. In zone coverage, he has a tendency to be tight and slow to react to plays, leading to him struggling to break on the ball fast enough to disrupt plays. He drifts too far inside, struggles to get back to take out plays behind him. In terms of his NFL comparison, He's been compared to now retired safety Louis Delmas. So has a lot of potential for sure. Gonna have to get a little bit better in speed and clean a couple things up, but still someone to keep an eye on for sure, for like a rotational piece. So the next player we're gonna go over here, we have hailing out of Rutgers, standing 6'2", weighing 220 pounds. We got Brendan White. So for Brendan Strix, he looks the part with a prototypical frame, with broad shoulders, long arms, tapered waist. He's quick to read run, barrels toward the line with bad intentions. He's an aggressive, reliable, open field tackler. He sees what he hits, shows good form and striking ball carries with excellent wrap-up ability. He keeps driving legs through contact to quickly stop the ball carrier. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's a bit high cut, and like many taller players, he struggles a bit changing directions, needing to step in his transition and loses balance. At times when he gets too far over his skis, he's at his best when he faces the QB. Needs a split second to relocate the ball on turns. Too often he appears content with allowing the reception and cleaning up with the tackle, needing to show more of a my ball mentality. So he's got to go and try and jump for the ball and go for the ball and not let the receiver catch the ball and give up a big play potentially. He's an aggressive downfield player whose risky pursuit angles can leave him and his teammates scrambling. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Josh Jones of the Jacksonville Jaguars, so he has a lot of potential for sure, but he's got to learn at going for the ball instead of just letting the receiver catch the ball. So he's got to make a play instead of just let the play happen and then just try and tackle him down. But still someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Indiana, standing 5'11", weighing 220 pounds. We got Marcelino Ball. So in terms of Marcelino's strengths, he has a powerful frame with excellent definition. He's a testament to a lot of time in the weight room. Has explosive athleticism, shows it in terms of speed and power. He accelerates quickly, possesses impressive top-end speed for his bulk. He generates bone-crunching collisions due to his speed and utter disregard for his own safety. So with him putting that work in the weight room, so he proves that he's willing to put in the work and put in the time and effort to make him impact. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he projects best at linebacker in the NFL and lacks the bulk and instinct scouts would prefer there. He has below average key and diagnostic skill, especially given his experience. He has to see it before believing it. It leaves him flat-footed when others are already anticipating the action. Therefore, is functionally slower on the football field than his 40-yard dash time will suggest. His dash time was around the 4:55 range. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Jalen Reeves-Maybin of the Detroit Lions. So he has a lot of potential for sure. He's willing to put in that work to make a name for himself. Could book the linebacker, could do something there, or maybe stay at safety. It depends on what he fits in the scheme, but still, maybe someone to keep an eye on for sure with some versatility. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Missouri, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 207 pounds, we got Tyree Gillespie. So in terms of Tyree's strengths, he's a sure-thing tackler, has physicality to succeed at any level. He can put down some hard tackles. He's extremely dependable in doing so. Offers a great frame, used to disrupt plays in both the run and the pass game. He's used heavily as a free safety despite projected as a strong safety. So he could play in any safety position, which will be a huge benefit at the next level. He has special teams experience and a lot of success in special teams too. It will entice a lot of teams as a day 3 option for day 3 of the draft. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he won't be able to offer a skill set as a single high safety. He got away with it at college, but college is a lot different than NFL. Has strong short area quickness. His overall speed's lacking. Could hurt his overall value. In man coverage, he'll struggle to keep up with the shiftiness that some matchups will bring. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Josh Johnson of the Los Angeles Rams, so has a lot of potential and has some versatility for sure. Could take a couple seasons before he really hits his stride. Could be starting off on special teams for sure, but still, maybe this is still someone to keep an eye on for not only a couple of years down the line, but someone for special teams for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Arizona State, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 205 pounds. So you got Ashari Crosswell. So for Ashari's strengths, he is a well-made defensive back, has good density on his frame. He also has experience as both a box safety and a nickel corner, so he has the versatility to line up at different positions on the secondary and be a rotational piece. He's physical, he's willing to stick his face in the fire to make a play. Processing speed's good. He's quick to attack downfield. He'll hustle hard to get into place, wants to be part of game tackles. While he's not an ideal man coverage piece, his aggressive approach and hands-on style to coverage makes him tough to get easy separation against. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's an average athlete overall, doesn't have the desirable range to work in too deep situations. Bit slow-footed, which will limit how effective he can be in man coverage. Burst is average. He won't be able to make up for lost ground. Developmental potential seems rather limited from an athletic standpoint. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Josh Metellus of the Minnesota Vikings, so has some potential for sure. Can line up as in a lot of different places on the secondary. A couple things he's going to have to improve on, including getting better in man coverage, but still, someone to keep an eye on for like rotational depth for sure. And the final safety, the final player in the secondary, the final player we're going to go over in this video, hailing out of Mississippi State, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 200 pounds, we got Marcus Murphy. So in terms of Marcus's strengths, he works well downfield. He's a dependable tackler with solid closing speed, good dependable form to be consistent. He works around the field in coverage, tasked with being in the deep zone, Carr coming down and playing man, does a nice job throughout. In man coverage option, he does a nice job staying with his assignments, shows solid fluidity. He contributed on special teams early in his college career, so he has experience on special teams and could start off there in the NFL for sure. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he can struggle to process in zone coverage. Going in the wrong direction, gives up plays he should have been there before. He only had 9 games at college as a starter. His inexperience can be seen on tape, and making the jump to the NFL is going to be a difficult transition for him. There are also a lot of questions off the field, as he missed 8 games in 2019 due to a suspension. So yeah, that suspension, that's going to have to be investigated for sure, so that could cause some red flags. And the specifics were not released, but the team will tap sources, though, for full transparency. So we're going to have to take a closer look at that suspension in 2019 to see what happened. Because there's not a lot of details on it, and that could draw some red flags. So could he be an idiot that doesn't keep his head on straight? That could be something to keep an eye on. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Will Parks of the Denver Broncos. So he has a lot of potential for sure, but he has a lot of experience. That transition is going to be tough. And notice that suspension, the question marks there. Is he going to be a leader in men, or is he just going to be a drama room cancer? And Dan Campbell says he doesn't want any cancers in that locker room. So definitely could be a gamble for sure until we know what truly happened in that suspension. And he could start off at special teams. So definitely would be a gamble taking him for just depth or special teams for sure. But yeah, anyway, that's going to wrap it up here for this Detroit Lions NFL draft preview. This was a little bit longer than normal, but yeah. There are just a lot of players in the second that can help out in the secondary for sure in day 3. Like, in terms of defensive backs and safety, the draft class is very, very, very deep in days 3. As you see by how long this video has been. So yeah, and of course this is going to be the final draft preview I'm going to do for this year's draft class. So there will be no more draft previews from now till the draft. The next time I talk about anything about the draft, I'm not going to do a mock draft this year because, to be perfectly honest, I don't know what the hell the Lions are going to do in the draft. It's going to be a question for sure. And for a mock draft, to be perfectly honest, they really don't mean jack shit. They're mainly just for fun, and they're just hypothetical scenarios for sure. Because we don't know what Brad Holmes and company are going to do. The one thing I do know for sure is that what I've been hearing from the draft reports is that Brad Holmes and company, they're looking at pick 7 to take the best player available. Which I think that's a good idea, take the best player available. And if he fills the need, then that's a huge plus. Honestly, like I say, I don't. If you want my honest opinion, I think the pick is either going to be Micah Parsons or one of the big three receivers. I would be on the board for Penei Sewell at 7, but I don't think he's going to be there. And I would be all for Kyle Pitts too, but I don't think he's going to be there either. So yeah, that really limits the options, and I don't see the Lions taking a quarterback with Jared Goff, some restructured contract. I'll probably do a recap on the Lions free agency since I haven't done that yet. I can't believe I haven't done a recap yet. I've just been busy, with all the draft previews, just trying to get some draft previews out for everybody to watch. But yeah, I'll make sure to get that recap done real quick for the masses. But yeah, so yeah, got that to look forward to whenever I get to it. But yeah, anyway, that's going to wrap it up here. I'll be honest here for the draft. I'd be okay with whoever the Lions take at 7. At this point, it's anybody but Justin Fields for me. And Mac Jones. I don't want Fields or Mac Jones. Those are the only 2 players that I would be pissed about if the Lions took him at 7. If the Lions took an O-lineman at 7, I wouldn't be pissed. If they took a defensive lineman, I wouldn't be pissed. If they take Micah Parsons, I wouldn't be pissed. If they take Kyle Pitts, I would be all for it. If they take Penei Sewell, I wouldn't be against it. If they took Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, or Jalen Waddle, I wouldn't be against it. But the one player I want the most in this draft is easily Micah Parsons. I think the one thing we could see for sure that could give an idea what the Lions do is we just gotta wait and see who the safe pick is at 7. Because if there's one thing we know for sure for the Lions, it doesn't matter who the general manager has been. Usually in the draft, the Lions usually take the safe pick in the draft. Decker was a safe pick. Jared Davis was a safe pick. Ragnow was a safe pick. Hawkinson was a safe pick. And Okuda was a safe pick. Usually the trend has been the Lions usually take the safe pick in the draft at wherever they are. I believe the last time the Lions didn't take the safe pick was 2009 when they took Stafford first overall. Because I believe in 2009, the safe pick for that draft was Mark Sanchez, and the Lions chose to go Stafford. And to be perfectly honest, I think the Lions made the right choice going with Stafford at number 1 instead of Mark Sanchez. I think the Lions made a better choice with Stafford over the butt fumble. But yeah, it's going to be interesting what the Brad Homestead company do for sure. All I say is that this pick is, once again, this is going to be the, quote, biggest pick to decide the future of the Lions franchise cliche. But yeah, honestly, I think the safest bet for sure is whoever is deemed the safe pick for the Lions is probably who they're going to take. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that to see who it will be. I think it's either one of the receivers or it's going to be Micah Parsons. We'll have to see. But yeah, anyway, that's going to wrap it up here. That's all I got to say. Just thought I'd give my quick thoughts here real quick before I wrap up the draft previews. Anyway, hail to Outsiders and hail to great Detroit Masterplan. Peace.